Hey guys, tonight we plunge into the windswept night air at Winterfell on a frigid evening in the waning days of autumn, the year 29 night after Aegon's conquest. It's dark, but torches flicker from the battlements, throwing long shadows over stone and snow. Your boots crunch over the icy flagstones as you move through the inner ward. Above you, banners flap in the cold wind, direwolf, lion and the occasional golden hand. The night smells of smoke and wet wool, the distant reek of horse manure. You're not alone. Servants scurry, a steward mutters about bread, and somewhere a young man in black walks stiffly by, avoiding the eyes of the highborn. All around, the air vibrates with a tension you can taste. Word spreads in whispers. Someone's brought news from the south, and the lords are uneasy. There's a feast in the great hall, but you're not sure if you're welcome. Tonight you stand at the threshold part of the castle. Yet apart from it, your heart pounds, knowing every step is watched, every mistake magnified. The great families toast to their names, but yours is the one they murmur only in half light, with a half smile always ending with the bast. No matter how sharp your sword or how quick your wit, you're branded before you ever speak. Welcome to the world of the unclaimed. But hey, don't get too comfortable. You probably won't survive this. In the game of bastards, you're as likely to end up in a dungeon, a ditch, or the Night's Watch as you are to make it to the next feast. So, if you're ready to sing the song of the unclaimed bastards in the Game of Thrones, let's see who's tuning in from the shadow of a keep, a windswept moor, or maybe just your bedpost, your location and local time down below, if you dare. And remember, in Westeros, names can save you, or finish you. If your cloak feels thin tonight, sleep with one eye open. Bastardy in Westeros doesn't need a gentle introduction. You are either legitimate, or you're not. The difference is everything. It isn't just the side eye from old women at the well, or a kitchen girl's whispered giggle. It's your surname. Different. Marked forever. You see, the customs of bastardy in the Seven Kingdoms run deeper than the roots of the old weirwood in Winterfell's Godswood. They're ancient, born out of feudal law, religious doctrine, and the iron needs of power. Let's walk you through it. The first thing you notice wandering the villages and castles of Westeros is that the word bastard doesn't just mean you were born out of wedlock. Oh no, it's a legal, social, and sometimes spiritual sentence. There's no oops about it. If your father is a lord and your mother is a tavern wench, midwife, or even a highborn lady married to another, you're out. Doesn't matter how blue your eyes are, or if you can recite your family's words backward. A bastard has no inheritance, no legitimate claim to titles or lands, and usually no place at the high table. You're not entitled to your father's name. Instead, you get a bastard name, a surname set by the region, not the man. That's how you end up with Jon Snow or Ilaria Sand. The bastard's fate, carved into syllables, whispered every time someone wants to remind you exactly where you stand. The process is almost ritualistic. As a child, you might be cared for by your mother, if you're lucky. Sometimes the father claims you. Sometimes he denies you, leaving you to the fate of the orphanage, the gutter, or the cruel hands of fate. If you're born to a peasant, congratulations, you get nothing, and nobody writes songs about you. If you're born to a noble, you might have a slightly warmer bed, maybe a new tunic every autumn, but don't count on the love. Instead, you're given a place that is neither here nor there, a liminal space. Welcome to being a living reminder of someone's mistake. It isn't just cold etiquette, either. The faith of the Seven, dominant in most of Westeros, regards bastardy as a stain. Septs preach that children born outside of marriage are a punishment for lust. You can almost hear the septon, finger wagging. No matter how sweet the babe, the sin remains. Even if you're a babe in swaddling, you're a living footnote to someone else's shame. Why the fuss? Simple. Inheritance. Everything in Westeros is about land, title, and the ability to pass it on. If every child, legitimate or not, had a claim, the whole house of cards would tumble. Your family tree would look like a bush after a tornado. It's not personal, just business. Well, except when it's very personal, which is almost always. You can find the first laws about bastardy in the reign of King Jaehaerys I Targaryen, who codified much of the realm's legal structure. Before that, it was all custom. One lord did this, another did that. Jaehaerys wanted uniformity, so bastards were declared to have no rights of inheritance, no claim to a noble house's arms, and no status except what their father bestowed on them. In some cases, a generous lord might give a son or daughter some land, a keep, or a suit of armor, but legally, the bastard remains outside the line of succession. Of course, there are exceptions. Sometimes a lord with no legitimate children would turn to his bastard out of desperation, not love. But the law is clear. You could be the smartest, bravest, most loyal child in the keep. But if you're a bastard, you watch as your half-brother, a snot-nosed kid who once tried to eat a frog on a dare, gets the title, the land, and the family sword. The regional bastard names are the most public mark. Each of the 9 major regions has its own. Snow in the north, rivers in the Riverlands, flowers in the Reach, hill in the Westerlands, stone in the Vale, storm in the Stormlands, pike in the Iron Islands, waters in the Crownlands, and sand in Dorne. These names are not a kindness. They're a brand, burned in with legal ink. You'll hear them everywhere. You're a rivers, sorry, no admittance, or a sand. Watch your purse. The name precedes you like a shadow, making sure no one forgets your parentage or your lack of it. Cultural attitudes toward bastards range from open contempt to grudging tolerance. In the north, you might get a nod of respect if you keep to yourself and swing a sword. In the Reach, you're as likely to get snubbed as offered a seat at the feast. Dorne is the exception there. Bastards are sometimes even celebrated. A sign of passion, not disgrace. It's the Westerosi equivalent of growing up in a vegan co-op, but with more daggers. But back to the rules. There's a fine line between law and custom. The law says bastards get nothing, but the custom, especially among the powerful, sometimes blurs the line. You might find a nobleman with a soft spot for his illegitimate children, slipping them coin or giving them a minor role in his household. Others are less sentimental, treating their bastards as useful tools, or worse, as hostages against enemies. One minute you're given a puppy for your name day, the next, you're sent off to a distant sept for your own safety. Spoiler, it's never for your own safety. It's not all doom and gloom though. Some bastards manage to make a life, especially if they're skilled, charming, or ruthless. Others try to erase the stain by deeds, hoping that enough heroism will make people forget. That's optimistic. You could save the entire realm, but you'll always be the bastard who... It's like having a spinach leaf stuck in your teeth at a royal feast. No one will say anything, but everyone notices. Being a bastard affects everything. What you wear, where you sleep, how you eat. You don't get the fine velvets or silks. Maybe if you're lucky, you get a decent wool cloak. You eat at the servants' table, not with the lords. Even your training, if you get any, is second rate, unless you're acknowledged, and that's a rare honor. You're always the last in line, always the one to blame when something goes missing. Children are cruel, too. Bastard children in noble households often face mockery and bullying. Imagine growing up with brothers and sisters who remind you, every day, that you're not one of them. A snow among Starks. A rivers in a house of Tullys. Even the dogs look at you funny. Sometimes, though, being an outsider gives you a unique perspective. You learn to listen, to watch, to spot patterns. You're the invisible thread in the tapestry, seeing things others miss. Of course, you also learn to duck when stones fly, and to laugh off insults. Self-deprecation becomes an art form. At least I know who my mother is. Marriage is another matter entirely. Bastards are rarely married to anyone of status. Your prospects are other bastards, tradespeople, or if you're lucky, the occasional minor noble with more ambition than sense. But you're a wild card. Any children you have will inherit your lack of status, unless you somehow find a way to be legitimized, and that, my friend, is as rare as a sober Lannister. Yet for all the stigma, there's a strange allure to bastardy in Westeros. Bastards crop up in songs, legends, and old stories. There's something about the outsider, the unclaimed, that fascinates the noble-born. Perhaps it's the danger, or maybe just the freedom. After all, a bastard owes nothing to anyone, except maybe the truth of who they are. So, here you stand, on the threshold of history. You are marked by law, cursed by custom, and haunted by whispers. You might be clever enough to survive, strong enough to fight, or lucky enough to disappear, but wherever you go, the truth follows. You are the unclaimed, the untamed, the unwelcome, unless of course you make yourself too useful to ignore. As the night deepens at Winterfell, you wrap your cloak tighter and glance once more at the Great Hall, wondering what secrets and stories linger behind those thick ancient walls. You may not have a name worth singing, but your story is just beginning. You step through the world of Westeros with that bastard name trailing behind you like a stubborn stray dog, never quite letting you forget where you stand. But as you wander from castle to castle, you realize something. Nearly every great house, from the stark walls of the north to the golden lines of the west, harbors its own secrets and skeletons. And when it comes to bastards, none are truly innocent. Even the most proper lord or lady has a relative or ancestor who slipped, and the consequences, as you see, are everywhere, written right into the family portraits and the hushes at the supper table. Let's take a stroll up the icy King's Road to Winterfell, where the Starks, those paragons of honour, still keep a place at the back of the hall for Jon Snow, the brooding, sharp-eyed nephew of Lord Eddard. Jon's existence is an open secret, tolerated yet always apart. Eddard Stark, dutiful to a fault, raises Jon as his own, but never gives him the Stark name. You see Jon, at feasts, quietly accepting the smallest portions, his direwolf ghost at his side, because even in a castle ruled by honour, being a bastard means leftovers, literal and metaphorical. Now, shuffle south, past the windswept Moat Cailin and into the blustery riverlands. The Tullys have their rivers, sometimes kept in minor posts or hidden away. Every lordly family, from the Blackwoods to the Brackens, has tales of unacknowledged kin, sometimes used as bargaining chips in feuds. If you linger in the right tavern, you'll hear gossip about a river's cousin, who was given a post as a bridge warden or sent to foster at a minor holdfast. But make no mistake, these are not fairy tale promotions. A bastard might get a horse and a sword, but he's also a reminder you are here by grace, not by right. If you're feeling brave, you can venture all the way to Casterly Rock, where the Lannisters, those blonde, gold-dripping aristocrats, would never openly claim a bastard. But everyone knows the rumours. There's always a hill or two in the servants' quarters, or maybe serving as a squire to a distant cousin. Tywin Lannister, in particular, keeps things tightly controlled. For him, a bastard isn't a child, it's a liability, a weakness to be erased or hidden away. In a family obsessed with legacy, you won't find many Lannister bastards sitting at the high table. Yet, some houses treat their bastards as pawns rather than pariahs. House Baratheon, all storm and bluster, has had its share. King Robert Baratheon, famously fond of tavern wenches and barmaids, left a veritable parade of illegitimate children behind him. Some, like Gendry, find themselves working the forges, their blood and skill hidden beneath soot and muscle. Others vanish, quietly disposed of when their existence becomes inconvenient. Robert's legitimate children might inherit the crown, but his bastards inherit only his chin and his enemies. And don't get too smug. Over in the Vale, the Arryns have their stones, tucked away in distant valleys or given places as wardens of minor estates. The same is true for the Martells of Dorne, whose sands are notorious not for their shame, but for their ferocity. If you have the misfortune to cross a sand snake, you'll quickly learn that in Dorne, a bastard can be beelier than a purebred noble. It's one of the region's quirks there. Being a bastard is almost a badge of honour, as if the Martells are daring the rest of the realm to say something about it. But let's not forget the other houses. The Tarleys of Horn Hill, the Tyrells of Highgarden, the Greyjoys of Pike. Everywhere you go, you find the same pattern. Noble bastards half hidden, half embraced. Sometimes a lord is generous, letting his illegitimate son train alongside his true-born sons, hoping the best will rub off. Other times, the bastard is shipped off for his own good, to a far-flung holding, or to serve in the household of a minor bannerman. You hear stories of bastards forced to prove themselves over and over, always waiting for a mistake, always knowing that failure means exile or worse. Bastard daughters, too, are not spared. They are sometimes married off to minor knights or merchants, used as tokens in local alliances, but more often, they're sent to convents or kept as quiet companions to a noble lady. The risk, of course, is that they too might have children out of wedlock, compounding the stain, multiplying the family shame like rabbits in a hedge maze. If you want to see a lady of the reach clutch her pearls, mention a bastard granddaughter. It's the fastest way to clear a parlour. In all these houses, bastards are tools, sometimes useful, always expendable. When war comes, a lord might suddenly remember his bastard son, calling him to fight in the vanguard, or to lead a risky sortie. If he dies, well, no loss to the name, but if he wins, maybe there's a knighthood in it. It's the ultimate gamble, a chance at glory, but the stakes are always rigged, and don't kid yourself. If you're a bastard, you're more likely to be sent on a suicide mission than given a seat on the council. Still, some bastards do claw their way up. It takes luck, skill, and a talent for not getting stabbed in the back, literally or figuratively. Those who survive often become fiercely loyal to the house. Loyalty born of desperation, maybe, but loyalty all the same. The Starks are famous for this. Their household always seems to have a few Snows lurking around, training the dogs or guarding the gates. In rare cases, a lord might even openly acknowledge his bastard, giving him a place at court, a minor title, or a keep of his own. But these are the exceptions, the stories mothers tell their bastard children to help them sleep. If you're still not convinced, take a stroll through the annals of Westerosi history. You'll find bastards in every war, every crisis, every feast and famine. Sometimes they change the course of history, like Daemon Blackfire, the legitimized Targaryen bastard whose rebellion nearly tore the realm apart. Other times they're the invisible hands, steering events from behind the scenes. You might not see their names on the banners, but you'll find their blood in every corner of the kingdom. It's not all grim, of course. Bastards have a reputation for cleverness, for adaptability. If you spend your life being underestimated, you learn to make use of it. A well-timed smile, a hidden dagger, a bit of charm, these are the bastard's tools, and sometimes, just sometimes, they get the last laugh. After all, who better to trust with a secret than someone who knows how dangerous secrets can be? Yet the reality remains, for every Jon Snow or Gendry who finds a place, there are dozens, hundreds of others whose names are forgotten, bastards who die in battle, or disappear into the countryside, or live out their days as silent, shadowy figures on the edge of great houses. You might find them running the kitchens, tending the stables, or watching from the ramparts, always a step removed from the warmth of family and the promise of legacy. The noble houses are quick to remind everyone of the line between legitimate and not. There are family words, family swords, and family portraits, but rarely a place for the unclaimed. Yet, without their bastards, these same houses would be weaker, less adaptable, maybe even doomed. It's a strange paradox. The people you're told to distrust are the same ones who might save you in the end. So, as you pass through the halls of noble families, you can't help but wonder, who is the real heir to a house? The one with the right blood, or the one with the right heart? In the end, it's usually neither, just the one who survives. By now you probably realize that the Game of Thrones isn't just played by kings and queens. Bastards have always been in the game, sometimes as pawns, sometimes as knights, and every so often as players. Just remember, if you ever sit at a high table and hear a laughter too loud, or see a shadow in the corner, it might just be a bastard, watching, waiting, and maybe, just maybe, ready to change the game. And if you're ever invited to a feast at a great house, take a look at the people serving the wine or sharpening the Lord's sword. You never know, one of them might be next in line, if only the dice roll their way. For now, you keep walking, your bastard name hanging heavy in the air, part of a legacy as old as Westeros itself. As you make your way through Westeros, dodging gossip and the occasional chicken bone tossed in your direction, one truth keeps smacking you in the face. That name. No, not the noble name you secretly wish you had, but the special badge of bastardry that follows you like a second shadow. In Westeros, your region brands you from birth, and the realm has a whole system just for you and your illegitimate kin names that set you apart before you ever set foot in a lord's hall. In the north, where the wind never seems to stop howling and everything smells faintly of pine, fir, and stubbornness, you're a snow. That means every time someone yells, "John," across a courtyard, it isn't just John who turns. Every other unclaimed child is already rolling their eyes and reaching for a shovel. Up here, snow means cold, but also out in the cold. Even the weather seems in on the joke. The Northerners will never let you forget it. At best, they'll ruffle your hair, mutter something about hard lives making hard people, and send you to clean out the kennels. Head south to the Riverlands, where the rivers run wide and the trout run wider, and you're given the name Rivers. It's a gentle enough word, almost poetic, but don't be fooled. It means you're expected to go with the flow, to take whatever scraps life offers, and keep your head above water, no matter how strong the current. At every muddy crossroads, you'll find a river sweeping the floor of an inn, or maybe running errands for a petty lord who likes to keep his options open. Over in the Vale, those sky-high mountains and eagle-perched castles mean one thing: stone. It's not subtle. The lords of the Vale are fond of reminding you that your name is your fate. Tough, plain, and sometimes in the way. A stone might be a squire or a stable hand, but good luck getting anyone to let you touch the moon door latch. You might get to sweep the floor, but the view is reserved for the Arryns. Swing west, and you'll find yourself among the gold-flecked hills of the Westerlands, where the Lannisters rule and everyone else just tries not to trip on their own ambition. Here you're a hill, another blunt little surname as if to say yes, you exist, but you'll never climb to the top. The hills are dotted with minor keeps and outlying villages, and it's no secret that some of those household staff have lion-bright hair and a certain knack for numbers. Still, if you're a hill, expect to spend more time in the pantry than the counting room. Keep going, and you'll hit the Reach home of flowers, feasts, and more gossip than a Scepter's tea circle. Here you're a flowers. It sounds pretty, but try living it down. You get called a wallflower behind your back and a weed to your face. You'll find flowers serving as gardeners, apprentices, or on rare occasions, the unacknowledged page at a tournament. Occasionally, a lord will take a shine to a clever flowers, but mostly, you're expected to blend into the scenery, petals easily trampled underfoot. Cross into the Stormlands, and you'll be called Storm. That one's a bit more dramatic, and the Stormlords seem to like the drama. There's something about the name that implies trouble, restlessness, and wild energy. In a land where tempests can flatten a field overnight, being a storm means you're expected to survive, no matter how rough the winds. The Baratheons may have started this tradition, but any bastard born in their lands shares the name and the expectation to weather every squall. Next, the Iron Islands, damp, salty, and perpetually one rain cloud away from being underwater. Bastards here are called pike, after the stony, wave-battered stronghold of House Greyjoy. Being a pike means living with suspicion, hardship, and a permanent smell of fish. Islanders are already outsiders to the mainland. Bastard pikes are outsiders among outsiders. You'd think someone would at least give you a free eel pie, but no dice. Back on the mainland, there's the Crown Lands, the political heart of the realm, where everyone's playing a game and nobody trusts their neighbour. Here bastards are called waters, which is either refreshingly neutral or suspiciously slippery, depending on who's saying it. You might spot a waters in the royal kitchens, or perhaps working the docks in King's Landing, always near the action but rarely in the centre of it. If you ever meet a waters who can hold their own in a sword fight, be careful. They've probably seen more cutthroat politics before breakfast than most people do in a lifetime. And last, but definitely not least, there's Dorne. This sun-blasted southern kingdom does things its own way, and so do its bastards. Sands, each one proud, fierce, and about as subtle as a snakebite. In Dorne, being a sand isn't just a burden. Sometimes it's a challenge. The Martells don't hide their bastards. They put them in the sunlight and let them sharpen their knives in public. A sand might be a merchant, a warrior, or a lover, sometimes all three at once. If you get invited to a Dornish feast, check your wine for snake venom and your chair for loose nails. 9 regions, 9 names, 9 ways to be marked for life. The names aren't just administrative. Oh no, they come with a whole set of expectations and stereotypes. Each one tells a story before you ever open your mouth. A snow must be brooding. A flower, I bet you know your way around a garden. If you want to see a grown man sigh, just call him by his bastard name in public and watch his dignity wilt. What's most diabolical is how these names close doors for you before you even reach them. You might be the best archer in the Riverlands, but if you're a Rivers, you're not getting a lord's daughter or a seat at the council table. Maybe you've read every book in Old Town, but if you're a Flowers, the only thing you're likely to inherit is a pile of manure and a healthy fear of roses. But it's not all doom and gloom. Some people wear their bastard names like armor, lean into the stereotype, and it can be a shield. Take the Sand Snakes of Dorne, for example. They flaunt their name, turning it into a badge of honor in the north. A tough-as-nails Snow might win the respect of his peers through sheer stubbornness. In a world that's always measuring you against an impossible standard, sometimes just surviving is a victory. Still, there's no escaping the little humiliations. Traveling through the Stormlands, try introducing yourself as Sarah Alaric Storm and see how many doors slam in your face. You might get a free mug of ale from a barkeep who likes your pluck, or you might get laughed out of the inn in King's Landing. The waters might manage to slip into the background, unnoticed among the thousands of schemers, but if the wrong person hears your name, you're suddenly a suspect. Who let the waters in here? It's enough to make you wish for anonymity, or at least for a name that doesn't announce your parents' indiscretion at every handshake. Occasionally you'll find a noble willing to adopt a bastard, bringing them into the household and giving them a bit more legitimacy. This usually comes with a new name, sometimes even a minor lordship. But don't expect miracles. For every bastard who gets a happy ending, there are 100 who end up as hedge knights, septons, or thieves. The best advice: learn to laugh it off. A joke at your own expense can diffuse a situation, or at least stop the bullying from turning into a brawl. Yes, I'm a Flowers. No, I can't make your roses bloom in winter. Or, sure, I'm a hill good thing. I know how to roll downhill when trouble comes. The humour may be dry as the Dornish sands, but it beats swallowing your pride every morning with your porridge. As you keep wandering, you realise how these names have shaped the world of Westeros. As much as any battle or treaty, they are as rigid as the laws that invented them, and as old as the songs sung in smoky taverns. The next time you hear a bard crooning about Jon Snow, or the Sand Snakes, or any rivers, waters, or storm, remember, behind the name is a lifetime of manoeuvring, endurance, and quiet rebellion. The bastard name is a story in itself, one not always sung, but never truly silenced. And if you ever find yourself standing before a lord who asks your name, pause before you answer. After all, in Westeros your name is your first defense, and your first vulnerability. Choose wisely, and maybe, just maybe, you'll get to write your own ending. You're getting used to walking with your head half bowed and your ears pricked for trouble. But as the castle gates swing open and you cross into the world of the noble-born, the rules of the game change again. Growing up as a bastard in the shadow of a great house's walls is a daily masterclass in ambiguity. You are neither noble nor commoner, neither family nor servant, always present but never truly included. Here, the difference between a warm bed and a cold shoulder is as thin as the blanket you're handed on your first night in the keep. Let's set you down in a castle courtyard at dawn. The air is chilly and smells of hay and roasting oats. The true-born heirs tumble out of their feather beds, straight into lessons with septons or arms masters. You, on the other hand, get a nod from the stable master. If you're lucky, your chores are never glamorous. Someone has to tend the hounds, carry water to the kitchens, sweep the rushes, and oil the doors. Guess who's volunteered? In the rare moments when you're permitted to join the other children, you're careful not to win too many games. Nobody loves a bastard who's too clever, lose too often though, and you're branded a weakling, not fit to carry even your own name. It's not all chores and side-eye. Sometimes, your father, if he acknowledges you, calls you up to the solar for a stiff, awkward talk. Maybe you're told to make yourself useful, which is noble speak for be invisible until I need you. Some fathers are distant, treating you like a particularly disappointing hound. Others are more conflicted, their affection shadowed by guilt and duty. I will see you're provided for, they say, and you wonder what that means. New boots? A spot at the foot of the table, or is it a one-way ticket to the wall? Supper time in the Great Hall is a daily trial. You might be given a place at the main table if your father is feeling generous or reckless, but usually you're tucked in a corner near the hearth, sharing stale bread with the cupbearers and squires. Every mouthful is a negotiation. The higher you sit, the more you owe. Every glance from the lady of the house is a reminder that you are not her child, no matter how much you look like her husband. And then there's the feast days, name days, harvest feasts, royal visits. The hall thrums with music and boasts, the air heavy with roasted meats and spiced wine. The trueborns receive gifts and praise. You might get a small token from your father or a wink from a kitchen maid who pities you, but most likely, you're reminded not to embarrass anyone. If a royal or a highborn guest asks who you are, there's a shuffle, a cough, and the inevitable, he's Jon Snow, one of ours. That last part is never entirely true. Jealousy and rivalry are as common as fleas. Your half-siblings may tolerate you on good days, perhaps even share a laugh, but there's always an edge. The older you get, the sharper it grows. You're a threat to their inheritance, a wild card in the family deck. You might be loyal to your house, but loyalty doesn't guarantee love. Sometimes you're the scapegoat when the chickens get loose, or the unsolvable riddle when a necklace goes missing. "Ask the bastard" is a phrase you get used to hearing. Still, you learn to read a room fast. If the master-at-arms is in a foul mood, you keep your head down. If the lord is feeling sentimental, maybe there's a story by the fire. You become a connoisseur of moods, a specialist in staying unnoticed until just the right moment. Every nod from the lord is weighed, every frown from the lady measured for danger. Some bastards thrive in these cracks. They become indispensable, quiet, competent, the one who can be trusted with a delicate message or a midnight errand. You may not have a title, but you might know more secrets than anyone else in the castle. That knowledge is power of a sort. Just don't let anyone catch you holding it. Let's talk about the private tutors. If your father is feeling ambitious, he might arrange for lessons, a maester, a septon, maybe a visiting scholar. You're not officially on the rolls, but you might be allowed to sit in the back, scribbling on old parchment and learning your sums. Every answer you get right earns a raised eyebrow. Every mistake gets you a smirk from the real heirs. You work twice as hard for half the recognition, and 3 times as hard to avoid being noticed when you're wrong. But all that effort can pay off. Some bastards find niches as clerks, healers, or even advisors. In a household always short on trustworthy hands, a bastard who knows how to keep his mouth shut can climb quietly, step by careful step. It's a bit like gardening in winter. Most seeds die, but the survivors are hardy and tough. Yet even the best behaved, most resourceful bastards run up against the wall of expectation. The cook's boy can rise to be master of the kitchens, but the bastard, he's always just the bastard. You'll hear it from the guards when they're drunk, or from your siblings when they're jealous, or from your stepmother when she thinks you're not listening. You might earn a reputation for cleverness or bravery, but your triumphs are always flavoured with that unspoken for a bastard. Let's not forget the younger children, the little brothers and sisters who don't know any better. They follow you around, giggling and mimicking the way you walk, or the way you talk. They don't understand why the scepter frowns when you enter the room, or why the lady of the house's smile vanishes the moment she sees you. You could teach them to climb the walls, or to skip stones across the pond, but sooner or later, someone reminds them that you're not really their family. When puberty hits, the stakes get higher. Suddenly, every glance from a maid is suspicious, every whispered joke sharper. The pretty bastard is a problem. Lords worry about dalliance and disgrace. Ladies fret about daughters making mistakes. A bastard girl with beauty and wit might attract attention, but she rarely attracts protection. If she's lucky, she's married off quickly. If not, she's kept close, watched and warned. Meanwhile, bastard boys are reminded that they are guests, not heirs, and warned to keep their ambitions to themselves. Sometimes, though, a bastard and a trueborn sibling become close. They sneak out together, learn to hunt, or conspire against a cruel tutor. These bonds can be deep, but they're always at risk. All it takes is one inheritance dispute, one marriage negotiation, and suddenly brotherhood gives way to suspicion. You'll hear tales of Starks and Snows or Tullys and Rivers, sharing childhood secrets and later battlefields. But blood is never simple here. There's always the chance, a faint flickering hope, that a lord might decide to legitimize his bastard. The promise dangles like a carrot. Behave and maybe, just maybe, you'll get the family name. But it's almost always a false hope. Legitimation is rare, fraught with political risk. For every lord who takes the gamble, there's a dozen who let the promise hang. A way to keep their bastard obedient and hopeful, but never quite equal. Even if you're never acknowledged, you can carve out your own corner of the castle. You find friends among the kitchen staff, the kennel master, the stable hands. You might not have a place at the high table, but you're part of the heartbeat of the household. You know which doors squeak, which guards nap on the job, and which secret passages can get you out of trouble, or into it. You hear stories, of course. Every castle has a ghost or two. Some tragic bastard who fell from a tower, or was sent to the wall after a single misstep, or vanished one night after a heated argument with a jealous heir. You grow up knowing that your fate is never secure. Even the smallest mistake can mean exile, or worse. And so you learn to walk lightly, to keep your promises, and to hold your secrets close. At the same time, there's a camaraderie among bastards, an understanding that you're all playing the same dangerous game. You might meet a Flowers or a Hill from another house, and share a moment of recognition, a nod that says, I know you. Even the trueborn sometimes envy your freedom, your lack of responsibility, your potential to reinvent yourself. Of course, they don't envy the cold beds or the empty pockets. If you're clever, you find ways to make the best of your situation. Maybe you become a squire, hoping for a knighthood. Maybe you learn to read, or to fight, or to heal. You don't have the luxury of being average. Being a bastard means standing out for better or worse. And so, every day is a lesson in survival. You walk the line between humility and pride, between caution and courage. You learn that love is conditional, loyalty is fleeting, and trust is hard-won. But you also discover that sometimes the walls of a castle aren't as strong as they seem. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from the places no one expects, from the hearts of those who've had to fight for every scrap of kindness, every moment of peace. By the time the sun sets and the shadows grow long in the courtyard, you've learned more about people than any maester's book could teach. You've seen ambition, jealousy, fear, and once in a while, real affection. You've learned that being unclaimed doesn't mean being unloved, and that sometimes the quietest voices carry the farthest. So, as you curl up in your narrow bed, listening to the sounds of the castle settling around you, remember, every stone, every whisper, every fleeting kindness is part of your story. You may not have a place in the family portrait, but you're here, living proof that some legacies are built on more than just blood and banners. When dawn breaks again, it's back to work. If you're a bastard in Westeros, you learn early that idleness isn't just a luxury, it's dangerous. Every task is a test, your worth measured not by your name, but by your usefulness. No one expects a Snow, Rivers or Hill to inherit, but everyone expects them to earn their keep. And so you're shuffled off to training yards, workshops and stables, wherever a hand is needed, and a noble son would rather not soil his boots. If your blood runs hot and your arms are strong, you might end up in the yard, a wooden sword pressed into your grip before you're old enough to grow whiskers. The master at arms eyes you with suspicion at first. A bastard is always a gamble. You're taught to parry, block and strike faster, harder, and with more determination than the true-born boys beside you. Their mistakes are forgiven, chalked up to inexperience. Yours are proof that you'll never be more than a half-trained stray unless you work twice as hard for half the reward. That's not to say no one helps. Sometimes, a gruff old sergeant takes pity on you, or a knight with a reputation for odd causes offers a quiet tip. Keep your shield up, lad. The arrows don't care if your mother was a miller's daughter. It's these moments, rare and precious, that shape you. The lessons stick. Never show pain. Never admit weakness. Never forget who's watching. But not every bastard dreams of swords and glory. Many are put to work in the trades. Smithing, weaving, brewing, tending the horses. If you've a head for numbers, perhaps you're apprenticed to the steward. If your hands are quick, maybe the kitchen. The work is hard, the hours long, and respect comes slowly, if it comes at all. Some houses are kinder than others, granting their bastards decent clothes and the dignity of a skilled craft. In others, you're barely above the scullery maids, your every effort scrutinized for flaws. Still, trade work has its perks. In the stables, you can hide from politics and hone your patience. Horses don't care about your name, only your steady hand. The blacksmith's forge is a good place to lose yourself, the clang of hammer on anvil, drowning out the gossip and the sighs. There's a quiet pride in seeing a set of horseshoes you made or a kitchen knife that bears your mark. It's proof, however small, that you matter at least to someone. But for most bastards, it's the sword that calls. Not because you expect to become a great knight, though you dream it, of course, but because fighting is the one way a bastard can sometimes rise. The battlefield cares little for birth. More than one famous hedge knight started as a bastard scraping by in a castle yard. If you can fight, you can win respect, even fear. And in Westeros, fear is nearly as valuable as love. You might begin as a squire to a minor knight, a distant cousin perhaps, or a household retainer. It's a strange apprenticeship. You polish armor, care for the horse, clean wounds after battle, all for the hope of someday earning a sword and spurs of your own. For most true-born boys, knighthood is a family tradition. For a bastard, it's an impossible summit, and yet some make it. Some are knighted on the battlefield, a lord too grateful or desperate to ask for a pedigree. Of course, not everyone wants a bastard swinging a sword in their hall. There are lords who keep their unacknowledged offspring close, but not too close, just useful enough to trust, but never so valuable as to threaten their legitimate heirs. A bastard who's too skilled becomes a threat. You might find yourself posted to a dangerous outpost, sent on risky errands, or placed under the watchful eye of a suspicious uncle. Training isn't limited to boys, either. Bastard girls are sometimes taught to manage a household, brew medicines, or, on rare occasions, wield a dagger for protection. In Dorne, a sand may ride and fight as fiercely as any brother. In the north, a snow daughter might learn to hunt or skin game. In the Vale, though, most are kept close, expected to keep their heads down and their dreams even lower. And then there are the other trades. If you're clever and nimble, you might find work as a messenger, a lookout, or even a spy. Bastards have a knack for listening at keyholes, moving unseen, and keeping secrets, skills that serve the powerful as much as they do the desperate. More than one master of whisperers started as a bastard no one noticed until it was too late. For those with the will, there's the road of the hedge knight. You take up your sword and ride from village to village, earning coin where you can, swearing service to whatever lord will have you. Life as a hedge knight is hard, dangerous and uncertain, but it's a kind of freedom. You answer to no one, owe nothing, and if you win glory in a tourney, sometimes the world forgets your bastard name. Just don't expect it to last. Even the best hedge knights can wake up in a ditch. Still, there's a certain camaraderie among those who serve, fight and work their way up from nothing. In the barracks, the kitchens, and the practice yards, bastards band together. There are jokes, bets, and the kind of friendship forged in adversity. Who's your father is less an insult, more a password, a reminder that you belong to a strange, stubborn brotherhood. But the dangers are real. If you're too ambitious, someone will notice. If you make a mistake, someone will remember. There are always eyes watching, always tongues ready to wag. If a true-born son stumbles, the family closes ranks. If a bastard stumbles, the fall is longer, the landing harder. And if you find yourself with more skill than the Lord's heir, careful. Jealousy is a deadly adversary, especially when it wears a golden chain or sits at the family council. Sometimes, though, talent wins out. A bastard knight who proves his loyalty in battle, a steward who saves a keep from starvation, a healer who saves a lord's child. These are stories whispered late at night, reminders that sometimes merit matters, but even then, reward is cautious. You might get a purse of silver, a pat on the back, maybe a plot of land far from the family seat. You don't get your name in the family book, and you certainly don't get a seat on the dais. All this breeds a particular mindset. Bastards grow tough, wary, quick to adapt, and adept at finding their own path. You learn to read a man's intent in his posture, to spot opportunity in a moment of chaos. It's not just survival, it's strategy. Every day is a small negotiation, a silent battle for respect and security. Sometimes, a bastard is taken under the wing of a powerful friend, a knight, a lord, or even a maester who sees potential. These rare patrons can make all the difference. They teach you to read, to ride, to think. They open doors you didn't even know existed, and yet, the debt is always there, an invisible chain. Patronage is a game in itself, and favors are never free. A few rare bastards become legends. You hear tales of champions, commanders, even lords who started with nothing but a bastard name and sheer tenacity. These stories are repeated with a mixture of awe and warning. See what you can achieve if you survive. For every legend, there are 100 others who fell by the wayside, forgotten by all but a grieving mother or a drinking companion. It's easy to romanticize the bastard's journey, the rise from obscurity, the triumph over adversity, but the truth is less glamorous. Most days are dull, hard, and thankless. You learn to savor small victories, a warm meal, a friendly word, a night without trouble. You keep your sword sharp and your eyes open, because trust is hard to come by, and betrayal is just another part of the landscape. Yet, if you're lucky, or just stubborn, you might carve out a life for yourself. Maybe you become a captain of guards, a trusted steward, or a famed hedge knight. Maybe you fall in love, start a family, and build something new. Your children might bear your bastard name, or if the gods are kind, something better. But no matter what, you never quite lose the sense of being an outsider, of living on borrowed time. And so, you get up each morning, strap on your armor, literal or otherwise, and face the world with a wry smile and a sharp tongue. The world may never fully claim you, but you've claimed your place in it, earned by sweat, grit, and a refusal to give up. After all, in Westeros, the only thing tougher than a bastard is the life they've survived. Love and marriage in Westeros are already tangled enough for those with gold in their blood and banners on their walls. For a bastard, the rules of the game become even trickier, more dangerous, and a little more absurd. You grow up learning that you're both a temptation and a warning. Never quite suitable, never quite safe, always someone's little scandal waiting to happen. It turns out in this world that who you love or who loves you can be as perilous as the sharpest blade. Let's be honest, for most bastards, marriage is not on the table, at least not the sort you dream of as a child. Sitting by the kitchen fire, listening to stories about lords and ladies marrying for love or alliances. If you're a bastard, you watch the marriage market from the sidelines. Noble houses barter their children for power and land, sealing treaties with wine and whispered vows. You, on the other hand, are barely a footnote unless your parent is powerful enough, desperate enough, or foolish enough to make an exception. The noble houses have rules, strict as a scepter with a headache. Legitimate sons and daughters are married off to advance the family's position. Even second or third sons are valuable bargaining chips. But a bastard, you're more likely to be married off as a gesture of charity, or not at all. For many, the best outcome is a decent match with a prosperous merchant or a low-born knight, provided that family needs a clever steward or a pretty face to brighten the hall. If you're a bastard daughter, your fate is a roll of the dice. Maybe your father wants to keep you close, out of love, out of guilt, or simply because he doesn't trust anyone else with you. That can mean a life of relative comfort, but also suffocating boredom and constant scrutiny. Every smile, every laugh, every whispered conversation with a stable boy is watched and weighed. After all, the last thing a noble house wants is a second generation of bastards under its roof. Some lords, especially those with a sentimental streak or a fondness for drama, try to arrange marriages for their bastard daughters. The options are limited: a minor knight, a widower merchant, maybe an aging bannerman looking for a companion to keep his household in order. Occasionally, a pretty and clever bastard might catch the eye of a more important suitor, if the dowry is hefty and the risks are low. But these matches are rare, and often come with a price: promises of loyalty, secrecy, or never setting foot in the family's main hall again. And let's not kid ourselves. There are those who would rather see a bastard girl locked away in a scepter dressed in plain grey, spending her days in prayer and embroidery. It's safer for everyone. They reason if temptation is kept out of sight and out of mind. You may visit, you may even bring the family some reflected virtue, but you'll never have a place at the high table. For bastard sons, the path is no smoother. Most are discouraged, sometimes gently, sometimes with a shove, from seeking marriage with anyone above their station. A bastard with ambitions toward a noble lady is seen as both a threat and a joke, depending on the mood of the hall. Any hint of romance with a true-born girl is squashed quickly. If you're lucky, it ends with a stern talking to. If not, you might be packed off to the wall. Or worse, that doesn't mean there's no love in a bastard's life. On the contrary, sometimes you're the object of dangerous fascination. For some, there's an allure to the outsider, the bad boy or girl with nothing to lose, the possibility of forbidden love in the stables after dark. There's a reason so many songs are written about star-crossed lovers and secret trysts behind the godswood. For every Jon Snow quietly mooning over a red-haired wildling, there are a dozen lesser-known tales. A hill who fell for a highborn maiden, the flowers who snuck love notes to the Reeve's daughter, the sand who ran off with a merchant's apprentice. But these stories almost always end in heartbreak or trouble. If you're caught, the punishments are swift and severe. A pregnant bastard girl is shamed, sometimes forced into a nunnery or worse. A bastard boy found in the wrong bed might be whipped, exiled, or, if things go truly sideways, strung up as an example. The message is clear: love is for the legitimate. For you, it's just another gamble, one more way to lose what little you have. Yet some bastards play the game anyway, using charm, wit, and a knack for secrecy to carve out their own kind of happiness. In places like Dorne, the rules are looser. The Martells and their kin view passion as a force to be respected, not hidden away. If you're a Sand, your exploits might be sung about rather than whispered. Elsewhere, you have to be cleverer. You learn to pick locks, read moods, and vanish at the first sign of trouble. And if all else fails, you pretend you were never there at all. Relationships among bastards themselves are a different matter. Who else understands the strange half-world you live in? Two snows sneaking away from a feast, two rivers finding each other at a market fair, a hill and a stone sharing a bottle of cheap wine, and commiserating about mothers they barely remember. These relationships, free from the heavy chains of inheritance and politics, sometimes have a tenderness you don't find among the highborn. You share scars, secrets, and the comfort of someone who doesn't judge you by your parentage. But even here, happiness is fragile. The world still watches, ready to pounce on any hint of impropriety. Sometimes you're used by ambitious lords, by cunning mistresses, by anyone who thinks a bastard can be molded into a tool or a spy. If you're good-looking, or clever, or particularly skilled, you'll find yourself the subject of all sorts of schemes. Some bastards learn to play along, trading favors for protection. Others try to escape, dreaming of new lives far from the great houses and their endless web of intrigue. Marriage, for most bastards, remains elusive, a prize dangled just out of reach. If you do manage to wed, it's usually someone of similar status, a fellow bastard or a tradesperson with little to lose. Your wedding is likely small, your vows spoken quietly, and your dreams more about security than social climbing. The true-born might sneer, but they'll also envy your freedom. You marry for love, or necessity, not politics. Still, every now and then, a bastard makes a scandalous match, an elopement, a runaway bride, a wedding without the Lord's consent. The gossips feast on these stories for years. Sometimes they end in tragedy, sometimes against all odds they work. The realm loves a juicy tale, and nothing is juicier than a bastard thumbing their nose at tradition. Yet the reality is often much quieter. You grow older, you find companionship where you can, maybe a lover in the village, maybe a spouse who knows the truth and doesn't care. Your children, if you have any, inherit your name and your struggles. You teach them the same lessons you learned. Keep your head down, trust slowly, love fiercely, and never apologize for what you are. Of course, there are always those who try to change the game. A bastard with a sword and a sense of humor, a clever Sand or an ambitious Waters, might catch the eye of a powerful patron. Sometimes with luck, bravery, and a healthy disregard for their own safety, they manage to rise. But for most, love and marriage remain a dangerous, delicate dance. One wrong step, and you're out in the cold again. And so, you learn to take your pleasures where you find them. A stolen kiss behind the stables. A night spent laughing with someone who understands. A marriage that, while not celebrated in great halls, is no less real for its lack of witnesses. For bastards in Westeros, happiness is a quiet rebellion, a refusal to let the world dictate your worth. You live, you love, you risk heartbreak, and sometimes you win. More often, you simply endure and find your joys in places the world never thinks to look. The world outside the castle can be hard, but for many bastards, the true test is what happens when the house decides you're too much trouble or too tempting a problem to ignore. When your name becomes too burdensome, or when you make the wrong enemy at the wrong moment, there's a set of destinations always waiting for you. Some are dank, some are deadly, and a few are just cold enough to chill hope itself out of your bones. The first stop for any problem child is the Black Cells. You've probably heard the stories. Dark, windowless dungeons buried deep beneath the Red Keep, or any major castle, where the only company is the occasional rat and the slow drip of water from unseen cracks. For most, these cells are reserved for traitors and enemies of the crown. But every so often, a bastard finds their way here, courtesy of a jealous sibling or a nervous lord. There are worse things than a quick death in Westeros, and rotting away in the Black Cells ranks high on the list. If you're unlucky enough to wind up here, you learn quickly. Survival is a matter of luck, silence, and keeping your back to the wall. No one comes looking for a bastard in the dark. Still, most bastards are sent somewhere less permanent but just as final: the wall. If your family wants you gone, but not dead, they'll pack you off to the Night's Watch with a heavy purse and a muttered prayer you never come back. For centuries, the wall has been the land's great equalizer. No matter your birth, all men in black are brothers, at least in theory. The Watch is a refuge, a prison, and a dumping ground for the unwanted. Lords use it as a way to rid themselves of bastards, criminals, and other undesirables, swearing they do it for the honor of the realm. The journey north is long, cold, and full of second thoughts. If you make it as far as Castle Black, you'll find a brotherhood unlike any other. Thieves, poachers, second sons, and more than a few snows, all sworn to serve until death. Here, your bastard name no longer matters. You're just another crow dressed in black, sworn to hold the line against the wild and the unknown. It's a hard life. No wives, no children, no lands to call your own. But for some, it's a strange kind of freedom. A place where your past doesn't chase you quite as fast as it used to. It's not all stoic brotherhood, though. The Night's Watch has its own hierarchy, and old habits die hard. Bastards stick together, trading stories and scars in the long, frozen nights. The officers are usually the only ones with a choice. The rest are there for life, whether they like it or not. You learn to swing a sword, build a wall, and sleep with one eye open. Wolves aren't the only thing lurking beyond the trees. And let's not forget exile. Sometimes, it's easier for a lord to simply send his bastard away. No formal vows, no cold cells, just a one-way trip out the castle gates with enough coin to get you lost and enough warning not to come back. Some bastards vanish into the free cities, joining sellsword companies or starting new lives under assumed names. Others head for Old Town, hoping to lose themselves in the crowds, or drift downriver to places where nobody asks too many questions. The cleverest might even make something of themselves, rising as merchants, mercenaries, or smugglers, but most become ghosts, names whispered in kitchens and taverns, a cautionary tale for the next generation. But not all endings are quite so grim. Sometimes, being sent away is the start of something new. On rare occasions, a bastard rises through the ranks of the Watch, or the City Guard, proving themselves through grit and luck. It's never easy. Every step is a struggle, every victory earned twice over. Still, the world is full of stories of snows who became officers, rivers who sailed the narrow sea, or sands who built empires in exile. It's not the life you were promised, but sometimes it's more than you dared hope. Yet for every bastard who finds a place, there are others who fall through the cracks. The brothels and alleys of King's Landing, Lannisport, and Old Town are filled with unacknowledged sons and daughters, eking out a living however they can. Some become thieves, some whores, a few even make their mark as spies or informers. The city is kinder in some ways. No one cares much about your blood when there's coin to be made, but the dangers are real, and kindness is in short supply. Every now and then, the realm's chaos creates unlikely opportunities. War, rebellion, famine. These are moments when the old rules falter, and a clever or lucky bastard might slip through the cracks. Hedge knights, sellswords, and courtesans rise from nothing, forging reputations on the backs of lost names. If you're clever enough to survive, the world can be yours for the taking. If not, well, no one ever expected much from you, anyway. Still, nothing shapes a bastard's fate more than the Night's Watch. There's a strange dignity to the Brotherhood in Black. You train, you fight, you freeze, and sometimes you rise. The best among you might become a ranger, venturing into the haunted woods beyond the wall. A lucky few become officers, even Lord Commander. In the Watch, deeds matter more than birth. You're judged by your courage, your loyalty, and your willingness to stand the line while the rest of the world forgets you exist. There are other walls in Westeros too, less literal, but just as final. The Silent Sisters take in lost souls, offering a lifetime of prayer and anonymity. Some bastards turn to the faith, serving as septons or scepters, seeking redemption or just a way out. For some, it's a true calling, for others, just a way to survive. Either way, it's a life apart. One more reminder that the world will never let you forget your beginnings. And yet, hope stubbornly persists. Every so often, a bastard finds family where they least expect it. A band of outlaws, a company of fellow crows, a lover who sees the person beneath the name. These makeshift families are fragile, always at risk, but they offer something the castles never could. A sense of belonging that isn't tied to birth or banners. You might think all this sounds unbearably bleak. It can be. The road is hard, the danger's real, and the rewards often fleeting, but for every story of exile and loss, there's another of quiet triumph. A bastard who defies expectation, who builds something out of nothing, who finds honor in the unlikeliest places. The world may push you toward the shadows, but sometimes that's where the brightest fires burn. And if you ever find yourself in the black cells, staring at the damp stone and wondering if anyone remembers your name, don't give up hope. Even here, stories are born, stories of survival, escape, and once in a while, justice. The world above might forget you, but the rats, the shadows and the cold keep their secrets well. And if the wall calls your name, stand tall. You might never inherit a castle, but you can earn something rarer, the respect of those who know what it costs to keep your oath when no one else will. In the end, maybe that's worth more than 100 gold rings or a seat at a crowded high table. So you pull your cloak tighter, check your boots, and brace yourself for another day. The world is still cold, the road still uncertain, but you're still here. And sometimes, for a bastard in Westeros, that's victory enough. You watch how Robb moves through the world, confident in his name. You see Sansa dream of court and marriage, Arya rebel against every expectation, and Bran slip between childhood and wonder. You move among them, sometimes brother, sometimes outsider. The ache of it never really fades, but you grow used to the rhythm, included in every danger, excluded from every inheritance. There are moments, though, when the walls of Winterfell seem to draw close, reminding you that you are not only apart from your family, but from the world itself. It happens at feasts, when the great hall rings with laughter and you catch Catelyn Stark's eyes on you, cool and wary, or when a guest asks whose son you are, and Lord Eddard's face grows even grimmer than usual. You memorize these moments, tucking them away like old wounds that never quite heal. If you had a coin for every time you were called Snow, you'd be as rich as a Lannister. Still, you find purpose in the things you can control. The sword becomes an extension of your body, hours in the yard honing your edge, matching Robb strike for strike. You learn not only skill, but patience. You know your mistakes matter more. A bastard's blunder is never forgotten. It becomes your armor, as much as the cloak you wear. Even Sir Roderick seems to test you harder, as if sensing the need to prove yourself twice over. When the letter comes from the capital, you see the ripple of unease pass through the household. Bastards, after all, are always vulnerable when kings play games. The talk in the halls is quiet, but anxious. Robert Baratheon's bastards found and hunted, rumours of royal blood leading to royal graves. You understand, in a way, the others do not, that a name can be as much a shield as a target painted on your back. And so, you become close to those who live on Winterfell's margins. Maester Luwin never hesitates to answer your questions, and Old Nan's stories seem tailored for your sleepless nights. Arya, wild and stubborn, finds in you a kindred spirit. Ghost, silent and ever watchful, becomes the companion you trust above all others. You're drawn to the Godswood when you seek peace. Its cold silence soothes you, its ancient weirwood somehow understanding, as if the old gods themselves accept what men cannot. As you grow, the quiet scorn of the household sharpens you. Where others might despair, you find resolve. When the choice comes whether to remain in the shadow of Winterfell or seek your own place in the world, you listen to the pull of both love and pride. The Night's Watch becomes both punishment and escape, a place where the old names matter less, and the cold north promises a kind of brutal equality. The day you leave, the world is white and silent, the snow falling so thick you can hardly see the gates. Lord Eddard's farewell is brief, but his eyes linger, haunted and heavy with secrets. Robb embraces you, Arya weeps, and Bran tries to be brave. Catelyn stands apart, her gaze hard as iron. You ride out with Benjen Stark at your side, the walls of Winterfell fading behind you, and for the first time in your life you are truly alone. At Castle Black, you discover that even at the edge of the world, the word bastard clings to you. The men of the Watch are thieves, poachers, noble sons, and cast-offs, but all are brothers in black. Here, your sword means more than your name. The vows you swear bind you to something larger, the defense of the realm, the facing of dangers unspoken and unseen. Yet, even here, the past cannot be forgotten. You carry it in every glance, every moment of doubt, every decision to show mercy or not. You rise through the ranks, the lessons of Winterfell hardening into leadership. Loyalty, restraint, and quiet strength become your trademarks. When you are chosen as Lord Commander, the world shifts beneath your feet. Some follow you out of respect, others out of habit, but all recognize something in you, the ability to hold the line when the world crumbles. Yet the story of Jon Snow is never simple. Secrets swirl about your birth, rumors whispered in dark corners. The truth, if it ever comes, threatens not only your own place, but the delicate peace you've built between brothers, between wildlings and men of the Watch, between your own heart and your name. Still, you endure. Every day is a test of faith, of strength, of your ability to survive in a world built to keep you out. You remember your father's words, "The world is not kind to bastards," but you've learned to shape your own kindness, to turn the name Snow into a mark of resilience, not shame. The legacy you build is not one of blood, but of choices, sacrifice, and a kind of quiet, stubborn hope. And so, in the cold and dark at the end of the world, you find your true place, not as Ned Stark's shame or Winterfell's mistake, but as Jon Snow, the unclaimed, who made himself a name by never giving up, never turning away, and never forgetting what it means to belong. If only to yourself. The snow may fall quiet and soft over Winterfell, but elsewhere in Westeros, the word bastard isn't met with brooding silence or bittersweet glances. It's a weapon, and sometimes that weapon is sharpened into something truly monstrous. No one embodies this truth more than Ramsay Snow, the bastard born in the shadow of the Dreadfort, whose very existence was a scandal and whose rise would paint the North in blood and terror. You know the stories. In the North, bastardy is a stain, but one that often fades at the edges. Stark bannermen foster their natural children, sometimes even offer them a path to honour. But the Boltons aren't the Starks. At the Dreadfort, bastards are kept as afterthoughts, weapons or at best pawns for their father's schemes. Ramsay's mother was a miller's wife, seduced, abandoned, then delivered a child who was neither wanted nor truly disowned. Roose Bolton, the Lord of the Dreadfort, acknowledged Ramsay barely. He was the ugly rumour no one wanted to speak of, a living reminder that even the coldest lords have appetites. Ramsay grew up knowing the difference between being ignored and being hated. No gentle instructions, no fatherly patience. His lessons were in cruelty, taught by the Dreadfort's silent stone corridors, by servants who learned to look away. His childhood was filled with petty torments, dead animals hidden under beds, games played with knives and hungry dogs, and a mother who loved him but could never protect him. He learned to read pain and fear in others' eyes before he could write his own name. For most bastards, the hunger is for acceptance or purpose. For Ramsay, the hunger was always for power, vengeance against every sneer, every insult, every day spent watching true-born sons and daughters walk halls he would never inherit. He turned his cunning towards survival, his loneliness into a cruelty that became his signature. Where Jon Snow armoured himself in honour, Ramsay armoured himself in terror. When Roose Bolton did call him forth, first as a tool, then as a threat, Ramsay embraced the role with a zeal that shocked even his father's bannermen. He delighted in the reputation that came with his name. Bastard? Yes, but also the bastard of Bolton, the Snow who made grown men shudder. It started small, a lost servant here, a beaten stable boy there, whispers that the kennel master's son was not quite right, but soon the pattern became impossible to ignore. Ramsay claimed legitimacy not through law, but through fear. He invented new tortures, played elaborate games of cat and mouse with his enemies, and taught even the cruelest Dreadfort men that there was always another level of suffering to be found. His hounds, famously savage, always hungry, became as much his signature as the flayed man banners that flew above the Dreadfort. A dog's death had always been a Bolton threat. Ramsay made it an art. When the War of the Five Kings tore the North apart, Roose Bolton saw opportunity in chaos. Ramsay was unleashed as a weapon, his bastard status making him the perfect deniable asset. First he sacked and burned, then he betrayed and tortured, loyal only to himself, or perhaps to the idea of one day being more than a footnote in Bolton history. The bastard of Bolton rode out under false banners, laying siege to Winterfell, flaying prisoners, sowing fear with every step. But the tides of war and politics can turn even a monster into a lord. When Roose, always cautious, always calculating, needed a successor worthy of the new black reputation of House Bolton, he legitimized Ramsay. The royal decree came. Ramsay Snow was now Ramsay Bolton, heir to the Dreadfort and Warden of the North. In one stroke, the shame of bastardy was erased, and in its place rose a terror Westeros had rarely seen. Legitimacy did not soften Ramsay, it emboldened him. With a title to defend and an entire region to control, he turned Winterfell into a house of horrors. Sansa Stark, brought north as a political pawn, found herself at the mercy of a man who took pleasure in domination and pain. The old northern families, already weary of war, watched with dread as the bastard's wrath became law. But even power built on terror has its limits. Ramsay's brand of legitimacy bred only enemies inside and outside his house. Fear is a powerful leash, but it does not inspire loyalty. As the North remembered the old ways, remembered the honour of the Starks and the cruelty of the Boltons, resistance grew. Ramsay's reign, brutal as it was always doomed to burn out. When Jon Snow returned, rallying the battered North under a different banner, the people saw a choice, not between bastardy and true birth, but between justice and horror. Ramsay's fall was as dramatic as his rise. In the end, surrounded, betrayed, stripped of power, he faced the same merciless world he had inflicted on so many others. His death, devoured by his own hounds, became a legend, a warning, a kind of justice that resonated even in the halls of the Dreadfort. The North remembered. Winter came for the bastard of Bolton, yet Ramsay's story lingers in every whispered threat, every story told to frighten children into obedience. He is the proof that a bastard denied love and twisted by hatred can become more dangerous than any true-born prince. Where Jon Snow showed that honour could redeem a name, Ramsay Bolton proved that cruelty, once unchained, could consume both its master and his world. So in the Song of the Unclaimed, Ramsay is the dark refrain, a reminder that blood may shape a fate, but choice carves it deep into the bones of history. Dorne is where the rules twist, where sunlight and secrets spill over into something new. Here, in the red hills and olive groves south of the Green Blood, the word bastard lands differently, less a curse, more a challenge, sometimes even a badge, and nowhere is this more vivid than with the Sand Snakes, Oberyn Martell's fierce, infamous daughters, who turn their shame into spectacle, their bastard names into banners of pride and vengeance. You ride into Sunspear under a sun so bright it seems to bleach the sky. The palace rises with its slender towers and shaded courtyards, the air heavy with the scent of lemon and spiced wine. Dorne is a place apart, proud, sensual, dangerous, and just a little more honest than the cold north or the plotting south. Here, law and custom say a bastard is called Sand. The name might mark you, but it doesn't bury you. Sand is everywhere in Dorne, after all on the wind in your boots, settling in every garden and palace. Even the noblest can't keep it out. Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper, made a point of not keeping anything out. His love affairs were legend, his tempers even more so, and his daughters, born of different mothers, all out of wedlock, were not swept aside or hidden. Instead, he named them Sand Snakes, claimed them with open arms, and trained them as weapons, not embarrassments. "My daughters are all welcome at my table," he would say, with a sly smile, "and anyone who has a problem with that can taste my steel." Each Sand Snake grew with a different story, a different wound, but they shared the same sharp edge. Albara, the eldest, took to the spear like it was an extension of her arm, her fury as famous as her skill. Numeria, named for the warrior queen, was cool and calculating, with a whip as quick as her mind. Tyon, the youngest, favoured poisons and honeyed words, deadly in ways no knight could hope to see coming. The others, Serilla, Ilia, the younger sisters, were each a piece of Oberyn's legacy, raised in the light, not the shadows. Growing up as a Sand Snake meant never apologizing. In a world where most bastards learn to shrink themselves, the daughters of Oberyn learned to fill every space they entered. They were educated. Oberyn saw to that. Trained in history, languages, and the arts of war and love. They learned to ride, to hunt, to fight, to talk circles around courtiers and draw blood from a sneer. They wore their illegitimacy like armor, turning the sneers of nobles into challenges, their own name a kind of dare. Society didn't always know what to do with them. Some Dornish lords watched the Sand Snakes with respect, others with suspicion, a few with open fear. Their very existence questioned the old rules, the easy assumption that blood and birth were everything. And yet, the Martells never hid them. At feasts, in processions, in battle, the Sand Snakes rode at their father's side, laughing at the world's discomfort. Bastardy was a stigma only to those who clung to older ways. But make no mistake, the Sand Snakes lived with the dangers their status brought. Even in Dorne, not everyone admired their independence. Some said they were wild, dangerous, too willful for their own good. Enemies outside the family whispered that the Martell line could be weakened by division, that the snakes might turn on each other, or on the house that gave them shelter. In the politics of Westeros, even a Dornish bastard must watch her back. After Oberyn's death in King's Landing, killed in combat, poisoned by the Lannisters' games, the Sand Snakes became a symbol of both vengeance and resistance. Their grief was not quiet. They pushed House Martell toward war, calling for retribution and justice, unwilling to let their father's murder pass. In the Water Gardens and in Sunspear's winding halls, their names became rallying cries. Unbowed, unbent, unbroken, the Martell words were never truer than when spoken by those who'd never been allowed to bend in the first place. Their tactics, though, were as varied as their personalities. Albara stormed, Nymeria schemed, Tyon smiled sweetly while hiding a blade behind her back. Their plots, by turns reckless and brilliant, forced the Lords of Dorne to reckon with the power of women, and of bastards who refused to play the part assigned to them. Sometimes their ambition brought chaos, sometimes victory, but never silence. In quieter moments, the Sand Snakes bore the private costs of their status. Court whispers still stung. Opportunities were sometimes closed. The memory of mothers left behind in distant villages or foreign lands could haunt their dreams. They knew more than most how fragile pride could be. Still, they found strength in sisterhood, in shared laughter and the shared sense of never truly belonging and never truly needing to. Across the narrow sea and throughout the Seven Kingdoms, their names took on a mythic weight. Bards sang of their beauty and fury. Knights boasted of having seen one of the sand snakes in the flesh. To bastards in smoky taverns or lonely towers, they became something more, proof that shame could be turned into strength, that a child of uncertain birth could grow up to shape kingdoms and avenge wrongs. Even their enemies, Lannisters, Tyrells, the old guard Dornish, learned to tread carefully when sand snakes entered the hall. The old rules might say they were lesser, but their eyes, their weapons and their will made a lie of it every time. In them, Oberyn's wild, fierce legacy lived on, proud, dangerous and determined to survive. In the end, the Sand Snakes redefined what it meant to be a bastard in Dorne. Not shame, but pride. Not silence, but defiance. Not weakness, but sisterhood, sharpened to a spear point. And for every bastard girl or boy watching from the shadows of a castle courtyard or the dusty square of a village, the message was as clear as the Dornish sky. You do not have to hide. You do not have to beg for a seat at the table. You can make your own place, carve your own name, and in doing so change the story, not just for yourself, but for all who come after. Far from the dry heat of dawn in the icebound halls of Winterfell, in the bustling streets and shadowy alleys of King's Landing, another kind of bastard story is being forged. Not in the courts or castles, but at the forge itself. Here the clang of hammer and anvil is as constant as the gossip in the taverns, and Gendry, bastard son of King Robert Baratheon, grows up without even a hint of his royal blood. For him, bastard isn't a whispered slur or a badge of pride. It's just another piece of a life spent working, sweating, and surviving among the city's teeming thousands. You imagine Gendry as a boy, tall, strong, brown-haired, with eyes blue as a summer sky, but no hint of his parentage beyond a certain stubbornness in his jaw. His mother dies young, and all she leaves him is a single memory, a helmet shaped like a bull's head, and the certainty that his father was someone important once. Gendry doesn't dwell on it. He's got work to do. The smithy is his world. Day after day, he swings his hammer, stokes the coals, shapes steel and iron into horseshoes, nails, plowshares, and sometimes fine swords for the city's wealthier customers. Master Tobo Mott, the smith, takes a liking to the boy, recognizing strength and skill that set him apart. "You're a natural," Mott says, watching the sparks dance as Gendry tempers a blade. "Don't waste it." Gendry learns, not just how to make weapons, but how to survive in a city that doesn't care about your name unless it's trouble. He knows nothing of his royal blood. No one does. Not even Mott, though the gold that paid for Gendry's apprenticeship came from a mysterious man in fine clothes. A man who vanished as quickly as he appeared. For Gendry, there's nothing noble about being a bastard. He isn't Waters, the name given to royal bastards born in the Crown Lands. He's just Gendry, the smith's apprentice valued for his arm, not his ancestry. But fate is a restless thing in Westeros, and secrets have a way of boiling to the surface. When Jon Arryn, the Hand of the King, comes sniffing around the city's brothels and forges, Gendry's world tilts. Suddenly, gold cloaks arrive, questions are asked, and Master Mott grows anxious. "Keep your head down," he warns. "Don't trust strangers." Gendry shrugs. It's what he's done all his life. Still, the truth has weight, and in King's Landing, knowledge is as dangerous as a sword. When Eddard Stark, the new Hand, uncovers the line of Baratheon bastards scattered throughout the city, Gendry finds himself marked not by the favour of the crown, but by its fear. Bastards are more than shameful secrets, they're threats. Gendry is swept up in a storm he never made, forced to flee the city with Arya Stark and a band of outcasts, his only crime being his blood. The journey north is brutal. Gendry's strength honed at the forge serves him well. He wields his hammer as others wield swords, defending Arya and the others from gold cloaks, outlaws and worse. For the first time, his muscles, his stubbornness, and even his bastard status become weapons of survival. He doesn't know what to make of Arya, the wild-eyed girl with a secret name, but he recognizes a kindred spirit. They bicker and protect each other, awkward and fiercely loyal. On the road, Gendry finally learns the truth. He is Robert Baratheon's son, a royal bastard, as legitimate as any waters in the capital, and just as hunted. The news means little to him at first. What good is a dead king to a living boy? But gradually the weight of it settles on his broad shoulders. He is more than just a smith. He is a piece on the board, a prize and a threat in the endless game for the Iron Throne. Yet Gendry refuses to let the name define him. Even when he's captured by the Brotherhood without banners, even when Melisandre, the Red Woman, wants to bleed him for his king's blood, he holds fast to who he is. Strong, stubborn, honest. He refuses to be a pawn, running when he can, fighting when he must. When given the chance, he returns to the forge, shaping steel as he shapes his own fate. His journey brings him into the orbit of power. Stannis Baratheon, Davos Seaworth, and finally Daenerys Targaryen and Jon Snow. Yet, for all the lords and queens who would use him, Gendry remains at heart a craftsman. His loyalty is earned, not demanded. He stands by Arya when it matters most, fighting at Winterfell against the army of the dead, his hammer as vital as any Valyrian sword. In the end, he is raised to Lord of Storm's End, legitimized not because of his birth but because of his merit and courage. But the truth never leaves him. Being a bastard is both curse and opportunity. It marks you as expendable, but also frees you to become something new. Gendry's rise is proof that fate can be forged, hammered into shape by your own hand. He honours the name of Baratheon, but never lets it own him. To the other bastards in the shadows, boys in forges, girls in kitchens, orphans and cast-offs, Gendry's story is a rare kind of hope. You do not have to be the world's shame. You can make yourself. And so, in the heart of King's Landing, in the ruined smithy he once called home, a new fire burns. The sound of the hammer rings out once more, not just for gold or glory, but for the right to claim your own place in the world, no matter the blood in your veins or the name on your tongue. Now imagine the wind at your back is salt sweet, the sun bright as molten silver on the green-blue sea, and the horizon is nothing but sky and memory. Here, on the decks of sleek black ships, another sort of bastard story is written. Not in the cold of the north, nor the forges of the capital, but across the restless waters where names are both armor and invitation. This is the world of Aegon Waters, the self-styled Valyrian bastard, and the secret children of House Targaryen Dragonspawn, pirates, claimants, and ghosts who haunt the tides between glory and oblivion. The tale of Aegon Waters begins as so many in Westeros do, with a secret whispered behind closed doors, a noblewoman's shame, and a crown that can't quite stamp out desire. He's born in King's Landing, his mother a minor noble in the royal household, his father a king with hair like spun silver, and a taste for women far outside his marriage bed. No one speaks his paternity aloud, but everyone knows. Aegon's eyes are amethyst, his hair the pale gold of old Valyria, and his features so like the royal portraits that even the lowliest washerwoman knows to curtsy when he passes. As a child, Aegon is raised at court, never acknowledged but rarely denied. He's educated in the basics, letters, numbers, swordplay, alongside the lesser-born squires and the cast-off sons of minor lords. He's too proud to beg for favour and too clever to stay silent. He learns the rules of courtly life. Speak softly, remember every insult, and never turn your back on a hungry lion or an ambitious queen. Above all, he learns what it means to be Targaryen and unwanted, to be fire and blood, but only when it suits those in power. Aegon's beauty and charm open some doors, but his birth slams others shut. He becomes expert at making allies in the shadows, forging quiet friendships with kitchen boys, courtesans, and the children of sellswords. He learns a dozen languages from the stewards and sailors who come through the city, hears rumours of dragons sleeping beneath the sea, and dreams of a life that is more than just standing in the background of a royal procession. His moment comes when the court grows dangerous. Kings die in Westeros as quickly as candles burn, and with each succession bastards are swept aside, or quietly disposed of. When a new king takes the throne and whispers about Dragonspawn fill the halls, Aegon is sent away for his own protection. Some say it is exile, others call it opportunity. He boards a ship at Blackwater Bay, carrying only a sword, a change of clothes, and a single lock of hair from his mother, a reminder that he once belonged to someone somewhere. At sea, Aegon reinvents himself. With nothing but a name and a face, he proves his worth as a sailor, quick with a blade, quicker with a joke, and utterly fearless in a storm. He earns a reputation for luck, for beauty, and for danger. The crew calls him the Bastard of Driftmark, then the Valyrian, and finally, Aegon Waters, captain of the finest galley to sail the narrow sea. His banner is blue and silver, his sails emblazoned with a sea dragon, a nod to the old stories, a warning to those who would underestimate him. Piracy in Westeros is often a family business, and Aegon makes it an art. He raids the coasts of the Reach and the Westerlands, outsmarts Lyseni slavers, and outdrinks the Stormlords in their own halls. His ships become havens for the lost, the desperate and the ambitious. Runaways, outlaws, other bastards with nowhere to go. They follow him not just because he is lucky, but because he never lies about who or what he is. To sail under Aegon Waters is to accept the risks, the knives in the dark, the wrath of the crown, the promise of gold and glory in equal measure. But the shadow of House Targaryen never quite fades. Whispers follow Aegon wherever he goes, rumours that he is a true-born son, a secret heir, the dragon reborn. Some seek him out, hoping to use his name to ignite rebellion. Others hunt him, eager to snuff out the last embers of Valyria before they can catch fire. He plays the game as best he can, sometimes denying, sometimes boasting, always keeping the truth hidden in layers of half-lies and sea shanties. In time, Aegon's legend grows larger than any ship he commands. He becomes a hero to the dispossessed, a pirate king to some, a traitor to others. When war comes again to Westeros and the Iron Throne is once more up for grabs, Aegon is courted by would-be queens and rebel lords, each eager to harness his name and his fleet. He laughs at their offers, remembering the lessons of court. Trust no one who claims they can make you more than what you already are. The world of Targaryen bastards is a world of might-have-beens and never-will-be's. For every Aegon Waters sailing under his own banner, there are others, hidden daughters, forgotten sons, living lives of quiet desperation or violent ambition. Some serve in the Golden Company, chasing a dream of home they'll never see again. Others turn up in far ports, working as sell-sails, assassins, or if they're lucky, the trusted lovers of exiled princes and princesses. Aegon's story ends, as all pirate stories do, with a storm, whether of steel or sea. No one is sure. Some say he died fighting the Lannisters, others that he vanished into the fog with his treasure and his secrets intact. There are those who claim to have seen his blue and silver sails years after, skimming the edge of the world, always just out of reach. Yet, the mark he leaves is indelible. In taverns from Old Town to Brevas, sailors raise a glass to the Valyrian bastard, the dragon of the sea, and in the flickering candlelight of Storm's End, or the shadowed halls of Dragonstone, the lords and ladies of Westeros remember that not all threats to the throne wear crowns. Some carry nothing but a sword, a smile, and a name that refuses to be forgotten. In the Song of the Unclaimed, Aegon Waters is the wild refrain, a promise that even a bastard with enough courage and cunning can sail beyond the edge of the world and write his own legend in the language of wind and water. There is a saying in Westeros, when great lords clash, it is the small folk who suffer. But for bastards, those born outside the protections of marriage, often on the fringes of great houses, the wars of the powerful turn them from inconvenient secrets into pawns, tools, and sometimes kingslayers and kingmakers. In every dynastic conflict, from the Dance of the Dragons to the Blackfire Rebellions and Robert's Rebellion, the fate of the realm's bastards has been as unpredictable and as dangerous as wildfire. You watch it unfold, not from the front lines, but from the cold candlelit halls where alliances are forged and broken by a whisper. In the Dance of the Dragons, that bitter Targaryen civil war that tore the realm apart, bastards played roles as vital as those of true-born knights and lords. House Targaryen, obsessed with keeping bloodlines pure, also proved spectacularly fertile ground for bastardy. Secret children sired on serving girls and camp followers, royal by blood if not by law. During the dance, the most famous of these was Adam Velaryon, bastard-born but dragon rider, raised as the supposed son of Lord Corlys Velaryon, the Sea Snake. When the Blacks, those supporting Princess Rhaenyra, desperately needed allies who could ride dragons, bastards like Adam and his brother Alyn were legitimized and raised up. Their dragon riding changed battles, saved armies, and altered history, even as their legitimacy was doubted and whispered against by lords who resented their sudden elevation. Adam died a hero, loyal to his queen, while the question of his blood haunted the realm for generations. After the dance came the Blackfire rebellions, where the politics of bastardy became a blood sport. King Aegon IV, called Aegon the Unworthy, legitimized all his bastard sons on his deathbed, loosing chaos on the realm. The most dangerous of these was Daemon Blackfire. Given the legendary sword and a princely name, once legitimized, Daemon became the rallying point for thousands bastards, second sons, landless knights, who saw in him a chance to overturn the old order. The Blackfire rebellions raged for generations, pitting brother against brother, uncle against nephew, and scattering the seeds of war across Westeros. The legitimization of bastards did not heal old wounds. It deepened them, turning family squabbles into dynastic cataclysms. In every war, bastards have been both weapons and targets. Sometimes they are used as hostages, leverage in negotiations between lords. Other times they are assassins or spies, able to pass unnoticed where true-born heirs would draw too much attention. You see them in every shadowed hall, listening at doors, carrying messages, watching for the moment when the fortunes of the highborn might turn. Some are given command of troops or ships, rewarded for their loyalty with lands and titles, until inevitably, someone with purer blood and sharper knives wants them gone. Robert's rebellion, which toppled the Targaryen dynasty, was as much about blood as about law. Rhaegar Targaryen's rumoured bastards were hunted, while Robert Baratheon's were scattered, hidden, or like Gendry, left to forge their own fate. Bastardy became a weapon wielded by Cersei Lannister, who sought out the king's natural children to eliminate threats to her own offspring. Even after the war, whispers of secret heirs and lost children haunted the court, proof that the power of blood could never be fully erased by swords or proclamations. But the greatest lesson of all these wars is that the realm itself is often built on the bones of the unclaimed. Bastards become the hidden hands moving armies, the faces forgotten when the songs are written, the bodies left unnamed on muddy battlefields. Some, like Jon Snow, rise to command and reshape the world. Others vanish into the ranks of the Night's Watch or the Free Companies, their stories lost except in the memories of those who loved or feared them. And always, the question lingers: is a bastard's fate to be a pawn, a threat, or something more? The answer shifts with the tide, as each generation writes its own story in blood, hope, and betrayal. Some bastards choose loyalty, some vengeance, others mere survival. A very few seize the chaos of war and make it their own, founding new houses, forging new legends, and proving that the stain of birth is nothing compared to the choices a person makes with their own hand. As long as lords and kings play their deadly games, bastards will be the pieces no one can quite control, the unexpected wild cards, the seeds of both disaster and change. For every Daemon Blackfire, there is an Adam Valerian. For every secret heir, a forgotten soul. The wars will rage on, and so will their stories. So you listen, as the bards and the old men tell tales by firelight. You watch in the great halls and on the fields of battle for the shadowy figures with uncertain names and uncertain loyalties. Because in Westeros, when the banners fall and the swords are sheathed, it is often the bastards, the unclaimed, the overlooked, who are left to pick up the pieces, write the next chapter, and sometimes, just sometimes, steal the crown itself. The stones of Westeros remember, in sept and cathedrals, in little country chapels and candlelit shrines tucked into castle corners. The faith of the Seven and the old gods alike keep watch over the souls of the living and the dead. Yet when it comes to bastards, the prayers grow quiet and uneasy. In every whispered invocation, in every stern septon sermon, bastardy is a spiritual shadow, an uncomfortable reminder that the world is not always as pure, as orderly, as the priests would have it. If you are born on the wrong side of a blanket, even the gods, it seems, look away. You find yourself kneeling on cold stone, incense drifting through beams of sunlight, the painted faces of the seven father, mother, warrior, maiden, smith, crone, stranger, looking down with ambiguous pity. Bastardy, here, is not simply a legal or social status, it is sin, a stain on the soul. The doctrine of the faith says children are innocent, but the circumstances of their birth are proof of human weakness. Adultery, lust, broken vows. A bastard is a living reminder of sin, a test for all who meet them. Pity the child, but condemn the act. The septons say, washing their hands of blame while tightening the noose of shame. The stigma bleeds into every part of a bastard's life. At christenings, the name is spoken with a hush. At marriages, bastards are almost always excluded or married off to those equally tainted. True-born children are celebrated with feasts and processions, while the unclaimed or the openly acknowledged are left with a prayer and a warning. Even the ritual words are different. A true-born is blessed in the sight of gods and men, while a bastard's naming ceremony is sometimes done in private, a rushed affair in a side chapel or at dawn. You witness how this spiritual condemnation becomes a weapon wielded by the pious and the powerful alike. In the Reach, where the faith holds the most sway, a bastard cannot inherit land or titles, and is often refused even a place at the table. Septons and scepters teach that bastards must be humble, obedient, and grateful for the crumbs of kindness they receive. Accept your lot, atone for the sins of your parents, and strive for grace, the sermons say, even as the congregation glances sideways in judgment. But the faith is not the only religious power in Westeros. North of the Neck, the old gods rule, a faith older and less obsessed with marriage contracts. In the shadow of the weirwoods, a bastard is simply another child, marked by circumstance but not condemned by divine law. Yet even here, social custom bleeds in. The name Snow carries a chill, a constant reminder of separation. Bastards may find more kindness among the old gods, but the world is never truly free of shame. For some, religion becomes a source of secret comfort. Bastards who are shunned by families or towns sometimes seek solace in the faith itself, becoming septons, scepters, silent sisters, or joining the poor fellows. Service offers a new name, a new purpose, and perhaps a kind of forgiveness the world would never offer. You hear stories of septons born bastards who find peace in tending the sick or lighting candles for the lost. But even here, the past clings like a second skin. The higher one rises in the faith, the more the question of birth shadows every step. Spiritual suffering takes other forms too. You see it in the women who pray daily for the children they cannot acknowledge, in fathers who offer donations to seps in hopes of buying absolution for past sins. Some turn to the stranger, the god of death and outcasts, asking for strength, or even release. Bastards, in their most private moments, light candles not for hope, but to banish the darkness of loneliness and longing. Religion also fuels public shame. The faith's power is strongest during times of chaos. When wars ravage the land, septons blame the prevalence of bastardy and sin, calling for purges, penance, and sometimes violence. During the reign of the High Sparrow, the city of King's Landing trembles as public confessions, walkings of atonement, and punishments fall hardest on the powerless. Bastards become scapegoats, their faces pressed into the mud by the zeal of the devout. Yet, faith is not a simple thing. There are moments when the gods, old and new, seem to show mercy. A bastard child saved from fever, a new family found in a sept's orphanage, a prayer answered on the road to exile. There are songs too old, half forgotten about the kindness of the mother, the guidance of the crone, or the mysterious blessing of the stranger, who welcomes all lost souls. For every sermon of shame, there is a tale of grace whispered at midnight, giving hope to the hopeless. Some lords and ladies twist religion to serve their ambitions, seeking out prophecies to legitimize their own bastards, or plotting to have rivals condemned as the fruit of sin. The faith's power is both shield and sword, offering comfort to those it favors, and cutting down those it does not. You see, time and again, that spiritual suffering can become a spark for rebellion, a fire in the hearts of those who refuse to accept that their worth is determined by prayers or piety. Bastards walk a tightrope, judged, shamed, but also tested and sometimes purified by their suffering. The doctrine of the faith says they must atone, but many learn to build their own morality, to seek meaning in kindness, bravery, and survival, rather than the approval of gods who never answer. You leave the sept as the bells toll vespers, the sky burning gold and violet beyond the city walls. The faces of the faith statues watch you go, unmoving, impassive, their eyes neither condemning nor forgiving. The shame, the hope, the loneliness, the small acts of grace, all become part of the great tapestry of Westeros, woven tight around every name, every prayer, every unclaimed child. And in the hush that follows, you understand, even the gods, it seems, cannot quite decide what to do with a bastard. The world of men offers judgment. The world of spirit offers a question. The answer, as ever, belongs to those strong enough to claim it for themselves. Every so often, Westeros offers a bastard something it rarely gives. An open door, a new name, a chance to step out of the shadows and onto the stage of history. But the price for that path is never simple. The legitimization of a bastard, a royal decree, a lord's desperate gamble, or a kingdom's last hope, can lift a child from the dirt and set them on a throne. Yet just as often it is a poisoned gift, forging as many enemies as it does privileges, and placing the unclaimed in the crosshairs of every ambition and grudge the realm can conjure. You witness it most clearly in the stories that echo loudest: the Blackfire rebellions, the legitimization of Adam Velaryon, the rise of Ramsay Bolton, and even the storm-forged fate of Gendry Baratheon. These tales become cautionary ballads in every tavern and warning whispers in every lord's hall. Consider Daemon Blackfire, perhaps the most famous of legitimized bastards, and the most dangerous. Born to King Aegon IV and a noble woman, Daemon was raised among the king's brood of natural children, loved for his charisma and martial prowess, but never meant to rule. All that changed when, in a final act of malice or folly, Aegon IV bestowed the sword Blackfire and full legitimacy upon Daemon, elevating him overnight from a handsome liability to a threat to the entire realm. The lords who had once tolerated Daemon's presence as a charismatic courtier suddenly saw him as a rival for the Iron Throne. War followed, as bitter and endless as the Riverland's winter. Daemon's followers, many of them bastards and younger sons themselves, rallied to his Black Dragon banner, seeking a world where blood mattered less than the strength to claim power. In the end, Daemon fell, and the name Blackfire became a curse, his legitimization remembered as the match that lit decades of civil war. Legitimization often follows need, not justice. Lords legitimize bastards in times of crisis, when a true-born line fails, when heirs die in battle, or when a bastard proves so useful that denying him would be more dangerous than raising him up. Yet every such act sends ripples through the delicate web of alliances and grudges that bind Westeros together. The newly minted Trueborn finds doors suddenly open, but also watches old friends grow wary and rivals multiply overnight. Ramsay Bolton's story is another warning, less about glory, more about horror. Roose Bolton, needing an heir and a weapon, turned to his bastard son in a moment of opportunism. The royal decree that transformed Ramsay Snow into Ramsay Bolton was intended to secure the Dreadfort's future, but it gave new license to every cruelty Ramsay already possessed. Now able to act as a true-born, he unleashed a reign of terror, so fierce that it poisoned House Bolton's reputation beyond redemption. The North, always slow to accept a bastard, proved even slower to forgive a monster crowned by the law. But legitimization is not always a road to ruin. Adam Velaryon, raised from the status of bastard by Princess Rhaenyra during the Dance of the Dragons, became one of her most trusted dragon riders. His loyalty and heroism, unshaken by whispers about his birth, helped save lives and battles alike. For a moment it seemed legitimacy might build bridges instead of burning them. Yet even Adam's success was fragile, dependent on the whims of his patron, the shifting winds of war, and the willingness of lords to overlook the circumstances of his conception. The process of legitimization itself is fraught. Royal decrees, sealed with wax and oaths, can change everything and nothing. A king's will may be law, but lords remember, courtiers gossip. Even the new name, changed from Snow or Rivers to Stark or Lannister, sits uncomfortably like a borrowed cloak. Old insults stick, especially when whispered behind closed doors. Enemies seize on every hesitation, every rumor, every slip. The burden of proof is heavy. The legitimized bastard must work twice as hard to earn half the trust. Their victories never quite their own, their failures always traced back to tainted blood. For those who gain, there are always those who lose. True-born heirs, especially younger sons and daughters, see their futures threatened by a new rival. Cousins, uncles, and rival branches of great houses scheme to restore the old order, or, failing that, to destroy the new arrival by any means necessary. The result can be poison in the wine, daggers in the dark, alliances formed in shadows, and a kind of cold war that may last generations. For every Daemon Blackfyre or Ramsay Bolton, there is a Gendry Baratheon, a legitimized bastard who wears the new name lightly, working for the good of the realm. Gendry's elevation from the Forge to lordship at Storm's End is a rare story of legitimacy that doesn't end in blood, yet even he finds that the world remembers what he was. His loyalty is questioned, his every move watched for signs of ambition or resentment. The kingdom may need him, but it never fully trusts him. Women, too, sometimes find legitimacy, rarely, and usually only when politics demand it. A bastard daughter might be raised to lady for the sake of an alliance or a lack of true-born sisters, but her marriage prospects are always tinged with suspicion. A legitimized daughter must walk a narrow path, every action measured against both her new name and her old one. Then there are those whose legitimacy is only ever rumored. The Golden Company, mercenaries famed for our word is good as gold, were founded by Blackfyre bastards. Their claim to legitimacy always just beyond reach. Their very existence is proof that a name, once denied, can become a rallying cry for exiles and dreamers alike. For all its promise, legitimization is a double-edged sword. It grants power, but never quite erases the past. It is as much a test as a reward, a challenge to build a legacy out of both what was given and what was denied. The road from bastard to lord or lady is paved with broken trusts, shattered friendships, and battles fought on every field from the council chamber to the battlefield. In the end, the legitimized must decide, are they the savior their house needs, or a reminder of its failings? Will they use their new name to heal old wounds, or to open new ones? The answer, as always in Westeros, is written in blood, and sung in the songs that last long after names have faded. For the rest, legitimacy is a dream half glimpsed, a hope that one day the world might see them for who they truly are, not the name they were given at birth. All songs end, but some linger in the air, echoing in empty halls, whispered in taverns, haunting the dreams of the powerful and the powerless alike. The legacy of bastards in Westeros, the unclaimed and the unquiet, is one of those songs. Though they begin in shadow, their stories have shaped the fate of kings, kingdoms, and the very stories Westeros tells itself about blood, power, and what it means to belong. You see it everywhere, in the battered walls of Storm's End, where a blacksmith's bastard, Gendry, now sits as lord, shaping the future with calloused hands and a wary heart. In Winterfell, where memories of Jon Snow linger like the cold, his choices, his sacrifices, changing not only the Night's Watch, but the very nature of the North. In the far-off cities of Essos, where Blackfyre exiles still raise cups to Daemon's name, dreaming of home and a crown lost to time, bastards have always been the realm's wildcards. Their existence a challenge to the easy order of inheritance and duty. Their names are carved into the songs of war and peace alike. The Dance of the Dragons would have ended differently without Adam Velaryon and his brother Alyn. The Blackfyre rebellions, without Daemon and his fierce descendants, would have lacked their haunting refrain of lost glory and unhealed wounds. Even the faith in all its power cannot fully erase their stories. In every sept someone lights a candle for a lost child, prays for a future unburdened by shame. Some bastards become legends, their deeds echoing far beyond their lifetimes. Jon Snow's rise from the snowbound margins of Winterfell to the Wall, then to leadership, and finally to myth, has reshaped the North. His legacy is not one of blood alone, but of choice, sacrifice and the stubborn refusal to be defined by the world's narrow rules. Gendry, too, forges a path few could have imagined, turning the curse of his birth into a badge of resilience and honest labor. Others fade into silence, their stories kept alive only in the hearts of those who knew them. There are countless bastards whose names are lost to history, the kitchen girls who married out, the hedge knights who died unwept, the sons and daughters who sailed for the free cities and built new lives in distant lands. Yet, even these forgotten lives become threads in the great tapestry of Westeros, a reminder that the realm's strength comes not only from its banners and castles, but from the courage and endurance of its most unlikely children. For the great houses, the lesson is a hard one. You can try to bury shame, to lock it away in crypts or send it to the wall, but the truth finds its own way to the light. Every act of cruelty against a bastard, every moment of mercy or elevation, shapes the house as surely as any marriage or battle. The unclaimed leave a mark, in blood, in memory, in the laws hastily rewritten, or the songs sung in secret after the fires die down. There are still songs sung in smoky taverns and quiet keeps, songs of the sand snakes of Dorne, who made their own banners of pride and vengeance, of Aegon Waters, the pirate prince who rode the tides of destiny, of the poor, nameless bastards who changed a town or a heart. These are not just stories of shame or ambition, but of survival, defiance, and sometimes of hope. As you look back, you realize the real legacy of the unclaimed is this. In a world obsessed with blood and name, they proved that legacy can be chosen, that worth is not handed down like a sword or a crown, but earned one risk, one kindness, one impossible act at a time. The realm will remember Jon Snow, Gendry, the Black Fires, the Sand Snakes, and so many more, not for the stain of their birth, but for what they dared to become. The song of the unclaimed has no end, only echoes carried on the wind, tucked in the folds of old letters, living on the lips of every outcast, orphan, or dreamer who wonders if they might someday shape the world as well. Night settles softly over the Seven Kingdoms, dimming the banners and the noise, drawing a gentle hush over castle and cottage, city and sea. You sit now in the quiet, the crackle of a dying fire, your only company, and let your breath slow. The tales of the unclaimed, once full of struggle and sharp edges, begin to fade into something softer, stories woven with longing and hope, with love lost and found, with the quiet triumphs of those who refuse to disappear. You think of Jon Snow watching the snow fall at the edge of the world, of Gendry hammering out a future at Storm's End, of the Sand Snakes laughing beneath the hot Dornish sun. You remember the nameless ones, the ones whose stories will never fill a book, but who changed the world around them in 100 small, stubborn ways. The world of Westeros, for all its iron laws and harsh divisions, still finds room for change, for second chances, for the song that rises from the margins. As you close your eyes, let the echo of their stories carry you, a lullaby of resilience, of hope against the odds, of the certainty that every name, claimed or unclaimed, has its place in the song of the living. Rest easy now, your own story quietly continuing in the darkness. The wind hums in the trees, the stars burn cold and distant, and the legacy of the unclaimed lingers, an unfinished refrain, a promise that you too belong. Sweet dreams.